uyakwazi ukuthumela ama-email now.
We translate for those who can't understand. We write for those who can't hear. We describe for those who can't see. Subt, subtitles and accessibility for film, television and theatre. Subt.com.
Fred.
This is Natasha Stojanovic for Fred Film Radio.
Fred Film Radio, z vami sem Bor Preteršek.
Fred Film Radio, sono Angela Prudenzi.
Essa é Fred Film Radio e aqui é a Mariane Murissal do Festival de Berlim.
Angela Cerbi pour Fred Film Radio, on est au Festival de Venise.
Fred, the festival experience in 23 languages.
Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new episode of the Big Fred Tuesday. I hope you're all doing well. My name is Matt Micucci and this is your weekly Tuesday show on all things cinema, premiering on what is traditionally known as the least exciting day of the week, where we liven up the mood with conversations about many aspects of film with guests from all over the world, and we also revisit interviews from our extensive archives with guests from the world of film. For example, on this show, we will also be honouring our recent extensive coverage of the 77th edition of the Venice International Film Festival. But we must not forget that recently the Toronto International Film Festival also took place from the 10th to the 20th of September, despite the hardships of holding an edition of the festival in times of the coronavirus, and also despite its reduced slate of films. Interestingly, this year's edition marked the first and only time that the festival's top prize-winning film, the winner of the People's Choice Award, went to Venice's Golden Lion winner. I'm talking about Chloe Zhao's recession-time road movie Nomadland, starring Frances McDormand as a woman exploring a life outside of conventional society as a modern-day nomad. People's Choice Award runners-up were Regina King's One Night in Miami and Tracy Deer's Beans. And yes, all three films are English-speaking films. British Oscar-winning actress Olivia Colman received the Golden Eye Award at this year's Zurich Film Festival. The award honours film industry greats for their life's work, career and creative accomplishments. Colman appeared via live stream during the festival's gala premiere screening of The Father, the film directed by Florian Zeller, in which she stars alongside Anthony Hopkins. The Zurich International Film Festival is currently taking place, having kicked off on the 24th of September and will run through the 4th of October. And we may have some interviews from the Swiss Festival on the next episode of the Big Fred Tuesday. But as far as this episode is concerned, let me tell you that we will be touching base on the topic of sustainability in film by speaking with Janneke Brasecke, General Manager for Bluewater Africa, the company that leverages its advanced water purification technologies to save the planet from 250,000 throwaway plastic bottles, which recently collaborated with Ridley Scott on his production of Raised by Wolves, which was filmed in South Africa. Also, Fred Film Radio's senior editor Chiara Nicoletti will be joining me to have a chat about the Venice International Film Festival and more. And speaking of Venice, throughout the show we will be revisiting interviews from our extensive coverage of that festival with Maya Hawke, Merawi Gerima, Nathan Grossman and Abel Ferrara and more. So don't go anywhere because we are just getting started.
Fred.
So last week I talked about my 5 favourite films from the 77th Venice International Film Festival, and the film that topped the list was Residue by Merawi Gerima. Having recently made its debut on the giant American streaming platform Netflix, I thought it would be just right to take a listen to an interview I did with the director in Venice and with one of the actors in Residue, Dennis Lindsay. And here it is. It's a pleasure for me to have you here. And you know, our listeners may not be familiar with the film yet, and I kind of always hate to ask the question, but it's sort of a necessary one. So Merawi, would you be able to maybe tell us a few words about the story of the film and just
no doubt
introduce it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Residue is about a young man who comes home after many years away, looking to make a film about, you know, his childhood, where he grew up, you know, his friends and stuff. And basically he finds everybody just kind of scattered to the wind, you know what I mean? Friends missing, you know, locked up and things like that. So he's just, you know, trying to put the pieces back together.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. How familiar are you guys with this particular setting? this may be a naive question, but just to get to know you guys as well, I think, it's a good place to start.
I mean, Dennis, you want to take that one?
I mean, with the setting, very familiar with it because we living in it at the moment. So with my take on the whole residue, when I think about the meaning of residue, you just think about what's left. So we think about the movie in itself and the gentrification that's going on in our area, and we're just trying to decide what's left of what we have, and that's continually going on, not just in DC, but a lot of urban areas and every areas in different places in the world. So it's relatable to everybody, not just DC in general.
Exactly.
It is, yeah. That's right. I was going to say, actually, Merawi, I actually happen to have watched the introduction to the film that you recorded. It's a short video on YouTube that I found.
Nice.
And you mentioned the word rage in it. So the film is sort of fueled by rage, and you call it also a weapon. And I just wanted to know what you meant by that, and take it away. If there's any rage that you want to let out.
Nah, man. I tell you straight up right now, like, that's something we don't shy away from when it comes to this film. We want people to be angry when they walk away from the project because, so many times black people are, encouraged to just stifle their feelings, their righteous rage at the things that's happening to them. That's the history of black people around the world. So for me, when I go to DC, man, my attention is up to here, with everything that's going on. So the project is that from the beginning. It was an angry project at the outset, and it's very, it has maintained that throughout. And I think that in that way, it's important for me that people watch the film and take that, anger and channel it into something to actually work, in any way that they feel encouraged, to take back the city that we helped to build. You know what I mean? And like Dennis was saying, it's not just DC; it's cities all over the world.
Right. Rage can be a driving force for creation, and something creation then can be and productivity. I'm also saying, when I was making that video, the other part was what's going on in 2020 in America in general. George Floyd, all that, man. The rage boils over. You know what I mean? Everywhere you look, you just see people just exploding. And I think that thinking about that as I was recording the video, I was about to throw my phone, man. I was just totally. I understand that. Dennis, do you agree with that? Like that rage?
Yes,
do you feel that rage?
Yeah, I totally agree with just everything just going on, and like I said, also just living in it. So it's not just doing it just because. It's like I actually been a part of the rage, or just like I said, part of the movie. Just the whole gentrification, just the whole. It's just makes you angry about a lot of things, and then things. It's like a domino effect. So one thing happened, and the next thing happened, and you just can't do nothing but just get angry and upset, and just get. I'm saying outraged by what everything is just going on, and there's so much you can't really do about it at the moment. But with this movie, it just shows the light, or brings the light into how people really feel. Because a lot of times we don't have movies to show like how we really feel, especially from where we're from in Washington D.C. So I feel like with this, it's really going to open eyes to everybody. Once again, like I said, it's relatable, and I'm saying the rage. Everybody will feel the rage and feel like, you know what. I feel this movie, I can relate to it, and this movie is me. I would like to say just one last thing on that. For me, I felt very powerless being in D.C. when I came back home in my own kind of story, and I felt there was nothing I could really do. And it wasn't until I started working on this project that I started to feel that I had some type of weapon against it. And that's why I do refer to it as a weapon, because it's the biggest weapon in my tool set that I can use, to attack this thing that, this whole system of oppression that we seeing playing out. So it wasn't until I started working in that way that then I started to feel like I could do something, less powerless than I had felt before. You know what I mean?
Well, actually, the lead character of the film is a filmmaker working on making a film, and so I was kind of going to ask you whether it was an autobiographical story that you were telling.
Yeah, I tell you straight up. As filmmakers, one of the things that we do, we try to hide ourselves in the project. We try to act like, it's not about me, it's not autobiographical, but anybody who's worked on any artistic endeavor knows that it's inevitable that some of you is going to be imbued into the project. Right. And so for us, it was I was on that as well. I was trying to hide that, but it wasn't until we started shooting in the neighborhood where I grew up, with the folks I grew up with and their children playing our generation, you know what I mean? That I was like, why? This is 100%, about, kind of the way I grew up, why would I hide from that? And so the more we started to lean into that, the more the project started really just coming alive, man, you know, really vibrating.
It's just the whole people almost being forced to disappear. I don't know whether that's the right expression, but all these people moving in and, you know, just doing whatever they want. Because they can, you know, that's what they think, and that's almost what the world seems to be designed to do. You know,
that's it's because, you know, they have the ability to play out their, you know, their whatever they want, and black folks can't really, you know.
And a lot of times it stems from broken promises as well. Yeah. So a lot of times we've been told that, you'll be able to set it up for you, you'll get this, but when it comes to it, it's like, no, I'm sorry, we can't do anything for you. So a lot of that, like I said, come from broken promises as well. So when it goes to, say, DC, they promise to rebuild the project and tell people like, move out, when we rebuild it, you can move back in, but they raise the rent or raise the mortgage on the place, and in our community, you really can't afford it. So I'm saying it leaves us in the dust, and we get mad because, like, what happened? You said that we would be able to move back into where we've been at all our life, and now people like us are coming in and people controlling and then doing things that you feel like they can't do. So that's, like I said, rage comes from that where the broken promises.
And we're talking about a tight-knit community, too.
Yes, for sure.
An extended family.
I'm telling you.
You know, there's so much that I'd like to ask you, actually. But, Dennis, I wanted to kind of ask you something related to the character you play in the film. Mm-hmm. Because you played the character, you filled those shoes, so you felt what the character feels. And I was kind of thinking, one of the things that he's skeptical of is representation, though. Mm-hmm. And I wondered how you felt about that. I mean, do you feel like, you know, people coming in trying to represent certain situations, but then you're like, well, why are you doing it? You're doing it out of self-interest or not? But how do you feel about that?
It's crazy because my character is, I wouldn't say it's no different than me or anybody I've been with, my family, friends. Just want to know what's next to your purpose. So you, like I said, with the story, like he said, he leaves and comes back. So it's like, all right, what is your purpose of trying to write this film? Are you trying to help us? Are you doing it for your own self-progression? Or are you trying to help? He said you're doing it to help everybody, but I'm not seeing it for everybody. Right. So
where you been?
You know, saying, where you been? We've been here. Like I said, my character, he stayed in D.C., going through the struggle, going through the hassle of a lot of things going on in the area. So when the character Jay comes back and want to come back and write a movie, it's like, why did you leave anyway? You left us, and it's kind of like a resentment towards him. So me, I kind of feel it because, like I said, it's that whole anger thing. Like, man, like, what is your purpose? Like, why are you here? Like, what are you really trying to do? Like, if you really want to help us, like, really help us. Don't do it for your own self-gain.
In a world where everybody is set and positioned to exploit black people, you know what I'm saying? Where that's just the norm. And, you know, going to film school, all you see, man, is just, unfortunately, you know what I'm saying, like, young kids ready to just write a script about the hood, you know, go make some money off black people's pain, you know, exploit that to the fullest. Mm-hmm. And for me, I worried constantly about, am I being exploitative in this way? Is that, you know, am I no better than these people who, you know, I see doing this shit, white and black? Because, you know, black people are a cash cow and you can exploit, you know, with no consequence. And I never want to do that, but
No, yeah, absolutely. I was thinking, actually, with this film, too, with your work, then you could sort of counter that, you know, because you're telling the story of your people, essentially. And, you know, I wanted to ask you one last question, because I know that we're running out of time. There's so many things that I'd like to ask you again, but about the style of the film, because I found that amazing, too. It's almost like it's a very immersive style, but I don't know, I mean, would you maybe be able to describe it a little bit? I love, for example, the fact that some of the scenes sort of fade into each other gives it like a dreamlike feeling. And I could go on and on, but I'd rather than you talk about it.
Well, I could just hit a couple points quick. One, you got to see my parents' films to understand my films. Both of my parents are filmmakers, and I come out of that. You know, my grandfather was a playwright back in Ethiopia.
What are their names, just so that the listeners know?
My mother's name is Sharikiana Aina. She's an incredible documentarian, you know, and my father's name is Merawi Gerima, and Yeah, they have a whole suite of films that we self-distribute because, we operate, by any means necessary, and often that means without resources. And that's how this film came to be. And to be honest, that informs the style. That's the economic base of the style of the film. We ain't had nothing. And so basically, a lot of the scenes we shot, stylistically are that because we had no choice. We didn't have police car, so the police is just sound off screen.
That's true.
Yeah.
That was great.
Yeah, we didn't have, guns, so the drive-by is off screen, all these things that we had to solve creatively, and in a clever way because we ain't had the money. And even in the editing, a lot of it was badly shot, once again for various reasons. But, the creative process of kind of making it work, that comes out of my dad's style of filmmaking.
Yeah.
It'll make so much sense once you see his films.
But it is beautiful, and I love the way you're saying that because it just makes me admire it all the more.
Thank you. No, it's imperfect, and we don't hide from that, man. My dad told us the night before our first day of production, he took us all to the side. He was like, "Yo, this is not looking good." You know what I mean?
The day before you
started. Right. But he was like, but it's good. Jay ain't got $1 million or, a whole year to shoot. He said the urgency of the production will find its way into the film. And so just let it be.
That's a great line. Yeah, that's a great thing to say, actually. I think it's an inspiring thing to hear for budding filmmakers listening to this podcast conversation. We have to wrap it up, unfortunately.
No problem.
But it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you for having us.
My pleasure.
I remind our listeners, the film's called Residue, and this is Fred Film Radio, the Festival Insider.
Fred.
In recent years, there has thankfully been a growing awareness within the film and television industry on the need for sustainability and for embracing more eco-friendly ways. One of the companies helping the industry to do that is Bluewater, a Swedish-born company that leverages its advanced water purification technologies as an alternative to the plague of single-use plastic water bottles. Its water purification station was used during a challenging production of Ridley Scott's latest film, Raised by Wolves, filmed in South Africa. So we will be talking about that, as well as Bluewater itself, with Janneke Brasecke, who is the general manager for Bluewater Africa. Janneke, welcome to the show.
Hi, good day. Great to talk to you.
Right. Despite the geographical locations and the distance between us, we're able to connect. So that's fantastic. And I thank you very much for taking the time.
Yes, thank you for having us with you on the show. And I think definitely the last few months have showed that no matter where you are, you can stay connected with everyone.
Absolutely. And let's start off very simply. What is Bluewater? I mean, could you perhaps maybe tell me a little bit about its history and mission statement?
Yes. So Bluewater delivers innovative water purifiers and bottle solutions that are green, clean, and healthy, which is very important to us. We empower people, businesses, and organizations around the planet to help change the world by reducing their environmental impact when hydrating at home or at work or when you're on the go. So that's just a little bit about Bluewater itself, but its history is quite fantastic. So I can go back just a little bit about the history. Is that Bluewater was found in 2013 by a Swedish environmental entrepreneur called Ben Treteri, because he believed that everybody has the right to pure drinking water. And I think that's a very important thing that as we go through this discussion today, you'll pick that up from us, is that we believe that people have the right to clean, free drinking water. From the start, ending the need for single-use plastic bottles was embedded in the Bluewater business mission. We made our first entry into public water dispensing in 20 August. In 2017, during the America's Cup race in Bermuda, our solutions were so popular to the public that we then decided to expand our offering into other areas, supporting events like the Volvo Ocean Race, Formula E motor racing, and the 2019 British golf event, which was quite fantastic. There was 19 water stations across the course, giving water to about 200,000 visitors over the 4 days. That's also during the Open where Bluewater launched its stainless steel bottle, which is absolutely fantastic because it lasts like the whole day. Your water is cold, or for up to 12 hours, you can have like hot water in it. So that's a little bit about the history of where Bluewater came from and where we've started with the mobile units.
And so it is kind of growing. It's a relatively new company, but it is growing.
Yes, no, it's growing quite rapidly. We have quite a few businesses around the globe, but specifically the mobile water stations are stations that, they come up in a variety of sizes, and they're fixed with mobile geysers according to the number of people who needs to be hydrated and the location in which they are used. So the hydration stations are definitely something that's growing quite a lot. They are generate and serve water that can be either still, sparkling, or chilled. The water is actually cleaned by the Bluewater unique second-generated reverse osmosis technology that ensures that basically any water that's contaminated known to humankind is removed, including viruses, chemicals, and of course the big one that everyone talks about nowadays is microplastics, which today not only is in our oceans, but it's in the food we eat, it's the air that we breathe, and the water we drink. So our Bluewater Pro, which is basically used in households or anywhere else as well, is also within our mobile units. We're really proud of the mobile units that we use on film sets. They're designed to do quite a lot of liters of water per day. And I can go into that a bit more if you would like me to discuss just how the water stations work and how we work with them on different locations. But that's just, we're growing quite fast at the moment.
Yes, we will talk about that a little later on. Another term that I came across while I was on your website and sort of looking up things about Bluewater is single-use plastic bottles. Now, for example, if we take this for an example, why are they harmful to the environment?
Well, I think it's just because they don't break down. So if it goes into wherever it goes, if it doesn't get recycled properly, then it takes a few hundred years for something to disintegrate. So it's basically just lying there and polluting our world.
So it seems to me that Bluewater and its innovative products are prompting people to actually change the ways in which we think about water. So it's an ideological change too that it's prompting.
Yes, it's definitely a mindset that we're trying to change, and it will take a few years for people to change their mindsets, but there's a big step towards it, and we have the products that are able to assist people to achieve this, because a lot of times there's no other option, and people need to have water. So what we've been doing is trying to put products in the market that gives people the opportunity to change their mindset and to try something else, but something that works as well. Because I think there's a lot of times where there's something that's not practical and doesn't work, because a lot of people are passionate about reducing single-use plastic, but the products don't necessarily deliver the service that it needs to. So we spend quite a lot of time on putting together products that work really well within different industries to try and assist people to make this change.
So clearly in recent years, I've noticed that there has been a growing awareness of environmental issues from film and TV companies in several ways. And you mentioned it earlier. Now, is it true that Bluewater has started to collaborate with film and television productions? In what ways are you collaborating with them? And have you noticed that there has been a growing awareness within these productions?
Yeah, so firstly, South Africa is known very in the world as a very fantastic place to do film shoots due to the locations and the crew you get here and the value. So we have a lot of big international production companies that come and work here in South Africa. And over the last, I would say, 3 years, a big shift has come from the production companies to be more sustainable due to the impact that they have on the environment that they producing these different shows in. So what we found is that sustainability firstly became a very important part of your project. But when we started with our mobile units, we started in the events industry where we tested them, we used them on different locations, whether it's in mountains or along beaches or so. And it's then that I realized that the film industry in South Africa, as I mentioned, is such a large industry and it has such a big impact on the environment that I started investigating what do these people actually do to give people water on these sets. And I was shocked to find out that they're actually just giving them plastic water bottles, because there is no other solution for them. So that was the start of the whole adventure for me almost, was figuring out that there was all these film sets working with 400, 500 crew on set for like a few months. And every single day, each person uses about 9 to 10 of those little water bottles. And what happens to that? It all gets put in a bag and it gets, taken away. But it's so much plastic. And also what happened is film sets, wherever you look, there was bottles lying. People just take a sip of water. Then it becomes hot. You don't want to drink it anymore. So there was just so much wastage that happened that it was quite shocking for me to actually realize that there's a very big gap within the film industry to look at how we can change it. And it's then that I started chatting to Film Africa, which is one of the largest production companies in South Africa, who was at that stage looking at a certain production. And we then started talking about how can we make a difference and how can we change things. And that's basically where everything started, just from that conversation. And I would say the investigation, if I can put it that way, that I found.
We'll be back with General Manager for Bluewater Africa, Janneke Brasecke, to talk more about how Bluewater helps sustainability in film and television productions in South Africa, with reference to Ridley Scott's production Raised by Wolves, when we return.
Fred Film Radio.
We're back with Janneke Brasecke, General Manager for Bluewater Africa. Bluewater is a company that leverages its advanced water purification technologies as an alternative to single-use plastic water bottles. And before the break, we talked about that. And we also had started to talk about how it has been helping film and television productions go green, with reference to productions filming in South Africa. Now, one of these, which we will be talking about now, is Ridley Scott's new film, Raised by Wolves. So, Janneke, can you tell me a little bit about this specific production? I mean, what Bluewater products were used and the positive impact it had, particularly in terms of avoiding single-use plastic water bottles?
Yeah, so I think that was the Raised by Wolves was the first production that we actually went on as Bluewater from a mobile unit perspective. When we started the discussions, it's interesting because the mobile units, like I say, we tested them quite a lot on different sites. So the first thing they said to me when I took the mobile unit to the production is, can this go on a mountain? And I was like, yes, it can. They're like, but where's it going to get water? And we have a plan for that as well. So we were very prepared for any circumstance. And the Raised by Wolves was an extremely challenging set to go work on, which I'll explain a bit more about it. But we were ready to go and work on that film set and do it. And it was a fantastic job for us to start off with. We basically, let me first just tell you about the mobile water units, and because then it will make a bit more sense. And when I talk about the Raised by Wolves environment, is that the mobile unit is basically the same as I would say like a toilet trailer. We based it a lot on that, the design, just because we knew that the actual outside of it is secure and it goes around the world everywhere to different locations. So it's, if you can say, rugged and it will last. And then we built the filtration system within these units. We put big chillers inside them. And the big thing that we did is that the trailer has a 700-liter tank at the bottom, which means that whenever you place it somewhere, you don't need to connect it to any water, because there's about 700 liters inside there that gets purified every time you dispense from the trailer. It goes through a chiller and it goes through various filters so that we ensure that the water that comes out is 100% pure, safe drinking water. But then you had the situation where, what if the 700 liter finish and you're not connected to any, water supply? Because, as you know, on film sets, everybody moves around every 5 minutes. And I'm telling you that Ridley Scott, every 5 minutes, wanted to change locations because the sun's better that side or that side. So you have to pack up really quickly. So because we have the 700 liters, it's very easy for us to do that. We connect it to the bakkie, and our bakkie will just move it to the next site where he would like to shoot. So what we then do is we place a 1,000-liter tank on top of our vehicles. And then when we see that the tanks are running empty, we then fill them quickly again. It takes about 3 minutes for us to pump water back into the trailer. And then it's ready to go again, and it can be moved around. Now, the water that we actually use is water that we purify with the Bluewater Pro in our warehouse in Cape Town. So the important thing is that we don't make use of municipal water. So we actually impact the environment from a sustainability side on two different levels. The one side is we don't impact the municipal water supply because, as you know, Cape Town had a really big drought a few years back. And then also, obviously, from the plastic side, to reduce the single-use plastic bottles. So that's a little bit about the trailer. What we've recently done is also installed sensors. So with the COVID-19, we didn't want anybody to press any buttons. So we've put sensors in so it automatically pulls the water when you put your bottles or your cups inside it. So that's been working really, really well. But with the Raised by Wolf production, we were in the mountain at Lawrenceford. It takes you about an hour and a half to drive from the city of Cape Town to get there. And we had 3 of the mobile units on there. One is always positioned in base camp. So that will be then for all the crew and actors and everyone goes to fill there. One was on construction, which was in the mountain. And then one would permanently be, be on set, moving around as the production goes.
So, I mean, what's interesting to me from what you've said, and I thank you very much for your expansive account, very, very interesting, is that, the hydration station worked, despite the difficulty of filming at such a difficult location, but also it was able to adjust to the demands of the director, of Ridley Scott.
Yes, definitely. I think that I must tell that I think the film industry is one of the toughest industries ever. The people work extremely hard. I mean, you'll know it's about 12 to 15 hours a day, 5 to 6 times a week. And I think what we've managed to do is the unit managers have a really tough job. And on the Ridley job, I must tell you that those unit managers worked extremely hard because everything has to move every 5 to 10 minutes. And what we've been able to do is that with our product, we also provide a service. So we have a dedicated technician with a vehicle that actually forms part of the unit team. And that person actually moves everything around. So where normally your unit team would need to get water bottles delivered, move water bottles to different cool boxes, put ice in it, move that around, pick it up again. We've actually taken over all of that by just moving our unit around on set. Also, what we've done is nobody has to pick up any water bottles lying around anymore. I think the most beautiful comment that they made, the film production people from overseas said, just look around you on this mountain. There's not a single piece of plastic lying around. And for me, that was one of the best comments I've ever received, just to say, look at this environment, look at the impact we're making by just making a small change. And yes, it's I would say the biggest challenge we always face is people's mindset, because it is 2 steps further to go pour your own water than to just open a cooler box next to you, take 1 sip, and then, throw the bottle. But people, as soon as they've done those 2 steps, they don't want to go back. They understand the whole thing, and they understand what they're doing and the impact they're making. And one thing that's really amazing about our mobile units is that we actually have the technology inside them to track how much water gets used and dispensed. So from my computer, I can see that unit is running low on water, so I can send the technician to go and refill it. But what I also can do is I can see every single time somebody uses a dispenser, so I can actually tell the set at the end of every day, today you've used 2,000 liters, and that equates to X amount of plastic bottles. So by the end of the job, they know that they reduced single-use plastic by this amount, and they also know, it would have cost us maybe this amount to have done the plastic bottles. So it's quite a nice tool for them, or service for the film sets to make use of.
Hey, so, with the times that we're living in, I feel like it's kind of a necessary question to ask you. You mentioned it briefly earlier, but I'm just curious to know, has your work in general been impacted by the coronavirus?
Yes, definitely. In the beginning, it was very tough, in South Africa, and also to the global people that we've spoken to, is with lockdown. Without actors being able to come in, the film industry was closed down for 4 to 5 months, with nobody having any work. And most, as you know, most of the people are contract workers. So it was really a tough time. But I think what we were able to do is we were able to look at our products and say, how can we make it COVID-19 proof, so that when the production start rolling again, as we go down on the lockdown levels, we're ready. So we use that time to, as I mentioned, put in sensors. We've got smaller units as well that we use to put in sensors in them to test them. So by the time the set's open, we're ready to go, because there's so many productions that want to start shooting, but they were just waiting for international travel to open.
It sounds like what you guys are doing is absolutely remarkable. We did focus on the film and TV production side of things, but of course your work extends beyond that. But in terms of, future collaborations with film and television, are there plans to, expand on this activity? Anything that you'd like to share with us, even in terms of your ambition in this terms?
Yes, no, definitely. So I think that we will continue working in the film industry for however long we can, and continue to grow our product range. So we're lucky in South Africa that we're on level 1 at the moment, which means that there are actually actors and crew from international being able to come in, and they are busy. A lot of them are busy being quarantined at the moment. So we've actually started working on about 5-6 jobs already. And it's really large productions, as well as Netflix does quite a lot of productions in South Africa. So we're very fortunate, and I would say by January we will be fully booked on all our units. So the next step is definitely to grow the units, and we're getting also, there's a lot of interest from other countries as well, from production companies. So we are talking to them as well to see how we can assist bringing the units there as well. I think the important thing is that we're a purpose-driven company, and our aim is to reduce single-use plastic. But our aim is also to provide pure, fresh drinking water, and you have to always make sure that the product you put out and the service is of the best quality. So we're now in a position in South Africa where there is no other company that can do what we do. So we are now in a position where we can look forward into other countries to see where we can assist them as well in terms of the mobile water units that we have in South Africa.
That sounds wonderful, and thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us about it.
No, thank you so much for having us, and thank you for being interested in in the sustainability side of things. I think that there's a lot of fantastic things that are happening out there. I know in South Africa, every single production nowadays have a green side to them. They've got a sustainability team that's responsible for putting stuff together. And it's amazing that Bluewater started this with Film Africa, with the Ridley Scott production. That's basically the first production that did the whole green side of sustainability and bringing it into productions. And since then, you know, we've just grown in all different types of sustainability aspects. And it's fantastic. So, I mean, I'm very excited about it. I'm very thankful that we have the opportunity to make a difference. But I always say to people, it's small steps, but every little step counts. Every little one. At the end, it will all get together. But if everybody just take a small step, it makes a difference.
And we'll end it at that. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Have a lovely day.
Fred Film Radio.
Let's carry on with the theme of environmentalism by listening to an interview from the 77th Venice International Film Festival about a film on awesome activist Greta Thunberg. The film is called I Am Greta, or simply Greta, and here's an interview about it with the director of the documentary, Nathan Grossman.
This is amazing. I watched the film maybe ahead of time, and I loved it absolutely. I think that Greta is a force of nature, and it's interesting to see how she has evolved in this film from just being a regular, everyday girl, a very intelligent one nonetheless, to just an icon, an iconic status. But I think, and maybe you would agree, this film really humanizes her image too, right?
Yeah, I hope so. Of course, she's been in the media for a very much amount of time and done, you know, these kinds of interviews, short 5 to 3 minutes for a long time. But I think what's so fantastic when it comes to documentary filmmaking and feature films is that you can kind of, as you say, humanize people, or you can give them kind of more dimensions than you do in the news, kind of daily news reportages. So I hope that the film will help that.
So take me through the beginnings of the project, because you kind of followed Greta early on in her activism. When did you actually begin, and what prompted you to embark on this journey with her?
No, but Greta, she was, you know, supposed to strike 3 weeks, she said, before the Swedish election, and I got a tip from a friend who knew her family a little bit. That said that she was going to go down there to Riksgatan, is this windy street outside the Swedish Parliament, and I'm interested in climate change kind of questions, and I said, like, okay, we could, like, I could bring the camera, and I'll go down there and see if there's anything of interest, and you know, just see what it is. And I think we thought 1 or 2 days I will try. And when I came down and met her, I said, like, I had never seen her before, and she sat there alone, and I asked, you know, if I could put a microphone on, and told her I don't know what this is going to be, or if I'm even going to be here tomorrow. I just plan to film 1 or 2 days to just see what happens. So don't get your hopes up for anything in that sense. And we started.
Right. And so did you have any idea that it would get as big as it did?
No, I had no idea where it was heading. And you know, I think it's a classic documentary thing. I heard from I read this thing about Honeyland, you know, the documentary.
Yes.
That was a little bit the same kind of thing. You know, you go out and they were scouting for some other short film, and then they bounced into this fantastic character. And I think this is the same thing. You know, you just kind of, you go with the you go with the character, and you don't know where it's going to end up. We ended up here in Venice.
Yeah, exactly. And it's very much like in speaking of the documentary tradition, it's very much like the cinema verite of the 60s. Just go out there and just film. Because indeed, I believe that, and I was in the press conference. Great, I was at the press conference too. Fascinating. And you did mention that it was mentioned that it was just you, so it was very intimate. Did that help you also not only capture the events, but maybe get the trust of Greta as well as you were filming her?
Yeah, it was really funny. As you said, that we weren't I wasn't very professional in that sense. It was just me, myself. And no, of course, it's both from a technical point of view. It's as a director, I'm a cinematographer in my background, and I like to kind of to frame the pictures myself and kind of be in the situations through the camera. Yeah. But of course, I think when we traveled this much and nothing was planned, and I just tried to kind of follow them as good as I can, it was easier being myself.
Yeah, one of the things that you said as well in the press conference is that one of the things that surprised you is just how funny she was too, a sense of humour, which I think is actually important in communicating serious issues such as that climate change, possibly the most serious and important issue to address. But it doesn't really come through sometimes when people talk about her, and in this film you see that, as well as her passion for dance.
Yeah, she's this, as I said, like, that's what I love with documentaries, especially those documentaries that you see about kind of public personas, that you understand that these people are just humans, you know. And I think in the film, like, no one has heard Greta laugh. Her laughter is so kind of funny, and the sound mixers were, you know, they hated that sound because it was like so sharp and it came from, you know, the heart. So they always tried to mix her laughter down, and I was like, no, let it be, like, let it cut through the speakers, you know. It's a part of her.
That says so much about so much what you just said about, like, how information and even the media and just how we're used to sort of putting things out there. I want to be respectful of the time. I really would have so many other questions to ask you, but unfortunately, we got to be respectful of people's times. But I want to ask you now, just because you mentioned that you are interested in climate change, and I just want to give you maybe, take as much time as you'd like to answer it. But where does that interest when were you awakened to the seriousness of climate change and also just the environment at large, and what do you think is being done at the moment in the situation in terms of activism? Is it helping raise awareness? Are politicians responding to it? As well as Greta's own words too.
No, because of course it's a big question, but I'll try to answer it as much as I can. But what's interesting is that I got interested in climate change by watching a documentary. 2006, I think it was, and it was Al Gore's An Inconvenient Truth. And I know Greta herself got her first interest in climate change by also watching a documentary. And so there is something with films and documentaries in regards to this issue of maybe kind of taking it down, such a big thing, so that it's so too hard to kind of to understand, and sometimes films can kind of help that. So that's kind of why I started to make films, actually. And when it comes to if climate, if activism can help, yes, I think everything that has been changed on a systemic level in the world comes from the people. It comes from people saying that we've had enough, or we need to change this. And when it comes to climate change, I think the same will happen. I don't know when, but hopefully sooner than the later, as we're polluting every day and we're using up our carbon budget quickly.
Well, as Patti Smith said, people have the power, and if we really stop believing that, then what's the point, right?
Yeah, then we don't. Then we need to. Then we're in big trouble. Deal
with the consequences. Nathan, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
I remind the listeners, the film is called Greta, and I definitely recommend it. This is Fred Film Radio, the Festival Insider.
Fred Film Radio.
So hear me out. Fred Film Radio is a radio station, and the histories of cinema and radio are interlinked with one another, not least of all because they were basically born at around the same time. For a while, they complemented each other in sensorial ways. Cinema in its early days was obviously silent, while radio was and still is, to the best of my knowledge, in its purest form, an oral medium. When you think back to those days, it's almost hard to conceive of it for some, but wider audiences generally did not know what their favorite silent film stars of the silent era sounded like. Sure, some of them recorded their own voices and even recorded songs, including Rudolph Valentino. And of course, the careers of some carried on into the sound eras as they became stars of the talkies with varied successes. But there are many silent film stars' voices that were never recorded. And not only were they never heard back then, but we, in the modern era, don't know and will never know what they sounded like. But when I think back to those days and the interlinked histories of cinema and radio, I am also saddened by the fact that no known recording has survived of a once-in-a-lifetime event that is known as the Big Broadcast of 1928, where a group of huge film stars and filmmakers decided to let their voices be heard, some for the very first time. This was a year after the release of The Jazz Singer, billed as the first feature-length talking picture, which marked a huge shift in film production and soon made silent movies obsolete. At around the same time, there was another landmark event that had caused a revolution. A group of film artists had gotten together with the intention of controlling their own interests rather than having to follow the rules of the major film studios of the time. In other words, these were film artists who aspired to complete creative control. And so in 1919, D.W. Griffith, Charlie Chaplin, Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks got together and founded United Artists. It was from their studio lot that on the big broadcast of 1928, they, along with John Barrymore, Norma Talmadge, Dolores Del Rio and Gloria Swanson, decided to let their voices be heard. The show was highly publicized and broadcast nationwide, with some film theaters also selling tickets for this audio-only event. And it was presented in partnership with Edgar G. Wilmer of Dodge Motors in Detroit, who opened the show with an extensive introduction to the latest model of his car. As mentioned, recordings of this broadcast have sadly not survived, but while its importance is often overlooked, many reports speak of it being anything from disappointing to disastrous. Part of the reason why it turned out to be so disappointing was that the film artists who took part in the broadcast refused to let go of the persona they had constructed on the screen. This, of course, has a lot to do with the ways in which spectators perceive cinema, often unable to make the distinction between reality and fiction, and some even refusing to believe that the actors who portrayed parts on the big screen might have been unlike their real selves. For example, in the show, Chaplin tried to be funny in an exaggerated Cockney accent, and it's hard to believe that this would be the only time he would be heard speaking sensical words until The Great Dictator, released more than a decade later, and at the end of which he delivered one of the most powerful speeches on human rights history. Of all the parts of the show, it was perhaps Dolores Del Rio who came out looking the best by singing the title ballad of her then latest film, Ramona. Norma Talmadge was apparently replaced by a voice actress, and Douglas Fairbanks, who acted as host, had been well intoxicated. On good old whiskey, I believe. Another reason why the event was so disappointing was technical flaws in the actual broadcasting, the list of which appeared to be endless. A later Variety report noted a drop in the box office takings for the stars involved in the show that whole year, and even a drop in sales of Dodge cars, 30 million below the figures of 1926. Despite all of that, I am sad to think that we will never be able to hear this apparently disastrous show, because aside from personal interest, I think it was simply the documentation of an anxiety that occurred in the face of change. As mentioned, the broadcast occurred right at the time when studios rushed to adapt their equipment to record synchronized sound with their images. Of course, the reaction the event garnered could also be likened to the skepticism and skeptical response that people at large have in the face of change to this day. In any case, this is a period that has fascinated film fans, scholars and historians for decades, and that I will return to in the next episode of the Big Fred Tuesday by making reference to the film artists who took part in the big broadcast of 1928. But for now, we're going to return to more contemporary matters, and we're going to revisit our recent interview with the great Abel Ferrara in a moment.
Fred.
Few filmmakers have been as impactful and influential for the American independent film scene as Abel Ferrara. David Martos interviewed him at this year's Venice International Film Festival, where he unveiled his latest feature, Sport in Life. And here is that interview.
Do you think that we journalists and directors and actors, we forget the great life we're living?
Well, I think the pandemic kind of made us remember it, made us look at what we took for granted and what we miss and what we lost, So I mean, if there are any positive things to take out of, a tragedy like this is that we get to appreciate and have gratitude just to be alive, number one, you know what I mean?
Yeah. What was your personal lesson out of the pandemic?
I think that to further gratitude that I'm still alive. Especially, the life I lived, it's a miracle I'm alive. But now that I am, and now that I'm here, I'm going to take every day, and I'm going to appreciate every day, because who knows what's going to happen in the next day. You only have this moment, right?
Watching the Berlinale in your film is like watching the past, like 100 years ago.
I know.
Right.
Yeah, crazy,
I felt
right?
that way. I mean, we lived in a world completely different then.
Just having coffee together, just the hugging and the kissing. I live in Rome, man. I mean, giving up the hugging and the kissing that's a tough one.
What's in a film festival, in the insides of a film festival, that you thought people should know? Because you show how the show is run, right? Why did you decide to show how a festival is functioning
from the backstage? I mean, it was a celebration for us, because Siberia was like a 4-year journey to get that film made. And, was in competition. We had the opportunity, with Saint Laurent, to do anything we want. And I just wanted to shoot that from our point of view, from what's it like to be, the performers, the kind of backstage of Berlin,
I liked very
that
much.
was the starting point.
Yeah, I liked very much what you said in the documentary when you say, I'm old, I have this box of tools I can use in filmmaking.
Right.
This is why you feel more free than ever.
It's not. Am I more free than ever? It's that I realize every opportunity is to be grateful for, and not to have any fear. It's not the freedom. It's to be unafraid, because there's nothing really to be afraid of.
Yeah.
I mean, the situation of making films, of filmmaking, of the artist, of expressing, of working, is a gift, because you see how easily it was taken away. And to just be be the best you could be. There's an American Marine expression, is be all that you could be.
Yeah.
It's a military. It's how to get kids to join the military. But it's not a bad expression.
Yeah.
Just let yourself be free, because there's no downside.
Everyone is predicting again, I would say, the death of the cinema because of the platforms, and we got used to see films at home.
Right.
Do you think this time is really in danger, like the physical act of going to the movies?
Well, if you're going to get sick being inside, yeah, you bet it's going to be in danger. But I don't think there's going to be in danger if it wasn't for the pandemic. Obviously people are more addicted to movies, and I'm addicted, let's say. I mean, the movies got people through these last 4 months, in a way. I mean, everybody I know kicked up their film watching. I mean, I was editing, so I was watching enough film just doing that. But no, I don't believe it, because I think you miss... The minute that pandemic was over, that in Rome, that the lockdown was over, the sense of being in the street, the sense of seeing, the sense of being with other people. That's what the cinema is to share. Isolation is not the human end game,
Yeah. Are you going to shoot now with these measures, with the masks? Are you going to shoot?
Yeah, we got a new movie, yeah.
Yeah?
Got a film called Zeros and Ones, which is about life during a pandemic. A pandemic. It's a war movie, but it's not life.
War movie? With Willem or not?
No, it's going to be Ridley Germano.
Okay. It's been a pleasure, Abel. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Director of Sporting Life here and Out of Competition.
Thank you,
this
guys.
was Fred Film Radio, the Festival Insider.
Fred.
Joining me at this time on the Big Fred Tuesday is Fred's very own Chiara Nicoletti. Chiara, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me again.
Well, thank you for taking the time. It has been a while since you were in the on the Big Fred Tuesday, but we saw each other, of course, after our extensive coverage of the Venice International Film Festival.
Extensive is the right word.
Isn't it amazing how much we achieved over the course of the 10 days of what was essentially the first major international film festival to hold a physical edition, an entire physical edition since the coronavirus outbreak.
Yeah, and so far it's a major success because the other festivals coming after Venice haven't been that lucky because the coronavirus emergency is getting worse in some European countries, so they are not they're lucky. And Venice was extremely good at being organized and putting in place every measure possible to let us experience a real festival as we remembered, making us feel safe. I have to say that I didn't even want to go to screening rooms, and then I did, and I was happy and I felt safe. So I have to say, from my point of view, it was great.
Yes, I think when people ask me what my favorite thing about the festival was this year was just being back in the screening room. It had been almost a year since the last time that I had been inside a cinema watching a film like it's supposed to be seen. And you know what? From just how I felt about it, I felt pretty safe. We had to wear the masks. There was distance between the seats and no major problem. Everyone was pretty respectful of the health and safety measures, right?
Yes, that's what I liked. And I have to say that I'm noticing the same thing here in Rome, in the screening rooms, where I'm going back to screening the theaters. I have to say that people are getting used to wearing masks all the time. It has become an habit. It's a sad habit, but still it makes you feel safe. And I have to say that since I'm used to watching a film alone, more or less, I'm enjoying this having to be distanced in a way, but maybe that's only a film geek point of view.
Yeah, but maybe, I agree with you completely. I agree with you completely. Hey, so before we talk about Venice, you inspired me to ask you a question that I probably never asked you in all the years that I've known you. When is your favorite time of the day to watch a movie?
I have to say that I started to enjoy what they call here in Italy matinees.
Yes.
I like watching films in the morning. I know it's an old person habit, I think. But I remember that when they started to do it, when they started to put matinees in the big theaters, like a multiplex. I don't know if that's the right word also in English, but here I started to go when I wasn't a journalist. I started to go watching films at 11:30, midday or something. So I really enjoy that. That's something that I like to do during festivals as well. And I ate the afternoon, the 3 p.m., 2:30 p.m., 3 p.m. Film screening, because I feel like sleeping. So it has to be a really good movie to keep me entertained. And I don't know, it's been a while since I've been to a screening, for fun, late at night, the typical dinner and the film kind of night. So I don't know if I would enjoy it.
Well, maybe
breakfast and film.
Maybe Gershwin would agree with what I'm about to say, but mornings are for cinephiles and nights. You know who nights are for, Chiara?
No.
Lovers. How about that? Isn't that poetry?
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, yes.
Mornings are for cinephiles and nights are for lovers. Anyways, let's get back to business. That's a terrible thing to say when you talk about cinema. But let's get back on track is what I'm trying to say. Mm-hmm. We really did do quite an extensive coverage of the Venice International Film Festival. Now, we talked about it in general terms, but I haven't seen Nomadland. And so not even in my very Monty Python-esque dailies did I have the opportunity to actually say anything that was of any value at all about the movie. Were you able to see it?
Yes, because I was hoping till the end to have a Zoom interview with Frances McDormand or Chloe Zhao. So yes, I watched it, and I have to say that I'm not I wasn't totally moved like it happened with, for example, if we want to talk about Francis McDormand's movies like Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, on this kind of cinema epiphanies, as I like to call them. But I have to say that it was a very moving and interesting experience, this real America and this real American approach to a film that focuses on how important real relationships with people, real connecting to people is, which is totally another thing than the kind of America that we used to watch in movies and in general. And this philosophy of see you down the road, like caring for people, but having a word. It's like it's your film, actually.
Really?
Yes, because you're a nomad. You don't have really a city, but you can connect to people. In this case, through art, through our passion for cinema, arts in general, music. But that's a philosophy behind Nomadland. These people's, let's say nomads, houseless, not homeless, houseless philosophy. So the real America. And I like to say that since I'm among the aiders of Into the Wild, Sean Penn's movie, that felt exactly the opposite of that philosophy, like being able to connect to people while being totally content with this kind of freedom. So, and Francis McDormand was incredible, but I have to say that I really enjoyed seeing these known actors on screen that were amazing, with these amazing faces, eyes and hair. I have to say that, like, there were real people. You could feel them, you can smell them. I don't know how to say it, but it's very physical, tactile film.
Well, you
and
convinced
the music
me.
from Ludovico Einaudi was amazing.
You've convinced me, Chiara. I want to see it. I want to see it. And so that was, of course, I don't know whether we mentioned it already, but let's just say it again. It was the Golden Lion winner for this year's Venice International Film Festival.
And it was the first time that a film won the Golden Lion and also the Audience Award at the Toronto Film Festival.
That's right. That's right.
So,
since then, of course, the Toronto Film Festival took place.
So see you down the Oscar, not down the road.
We'll see. We'll have to wait and see. It feels like the Oscars may be just around the corner, but there's still a little time left. I believe that they will be delayed too this year to facilitate the fact that productions weren't able to finish on time, or might have had challenges in finishing or wrapping up in time for award season. So I'm not sure exactly what date that will be, but so
I don't know. It's going to be weird anyway, because they postponed it to April 25th, but still with the emergency not stopping, they've just announced that they have delayed all the other important releases, like all the Marvel films, and the only, let's say, blockbuster film coming out is No Time to Die, the James Bond film. The other are all coming out in January, from January on, Black Widow from Marvel and Wonder Woman, if I'm correct. So who knows? Who knows if they're still stuck in post-production, if they don't want to come out, in this time of crisis, because it will be like failing in a way. That's a very difficult issue.
We're going to take a break, but when we'll be back, Chiara will be as well. And we will continue to talk about the current film situation and share memories and thoughts on the 77th Venice International Film Festival.
Fred Film Radio.
We are back on the Big Fred Tuesday with leading Fred Film Radio reporter Chiara Nicoletti. Just before the break, we were talking about how the coronavirus has been impacting the release of some major films in theatres, and that kind of makes me think that these are difficult times for us too, and for the film press at large, because aside from the general hardships experienced by a large portion of the workforce all over the world, the travelling film festival community needs to kind of figure out what festivals and events will actually be taking place that we need to cover. But, we're trying to take advantage of the online possibilities. We at Fred may be able to bring you, dear listeners, some interviews from the Zurich Film Festival that is currently taking place. And then the BFI London Film Festival is coming up, and we'll see about that. And Rome is also around the corner, so there are a few challenges that we need to overcome. But nevertheless, back to Venice, which we did cover extensively. And earlier I asked you about your thoughts, Chiara, on the Golden Lion winner, Nomadland by Chloe Zhao. So now I want to ask you something a little different. If you had been in charge of what film would have received the coveted Golden Lion out of all of the films that you watched at the festival, so considering all of the sections and so the official ones as well as the parallel and independent ones, which film would you have awarded the Golden Lion 2020 to?
This year, I have to say, was very, very difficult for me, because normally especially at Venice Film Festival, I totally fall in love with one or two films. And this year, I only cried with two films, but I'm not sure that I would have given them the Golden Lion. These films are Le Sorelle Macaluso by Emma Dante, which was in competition. And the other one was Nowhere Special by Uberto Pasolini. But, I'm not sure that could be a Golden Lion. So I'm pretty okay with Nomadland being the Golden Lion.
Yes.
But I haven't watched all the films. So there are some... I've been told that Quo Vadis Aida should have won something, and it didn't. So I don't know.
And what about the Golden Lion for best memory of the festival? What is your favorite memory of the festival? What is, actually, let me rephrase that. I thought of a better question than that. This is totally improvised. Anyways, what was your favorite, or maybe, you could name a couple of them, interviews that you did at the festival? We all, you, I, and then Angelo did lots of interviews. Then David at the start of the festival did hundreds of interviews.
Yes.
What were a couple of your favorites?
Like my favorite was the one with Maya Hawke from Mainstream by Gia Coppola, because I've been following her career for a while now, and she's like the daughter of my favorite actor and the love of my life, Ethan Hawke. The Italian audience knows that, because I keep on repeating that, hoping that he will listen and come and kidnap me and marry me. Anyway, and I think it was my favorite interview because I didn't particularly enjoy the film, but I thought that she was brilliant. And plus, she was like an enthusiast for everything she saw and with everybody. So when I welcomed her, I found the courage to sing a song for her. No, I'm always very serious when I'm doing interviews, and this time I decided to make an exception. So before starting the official interview, I told her, okay, I want to sing something for you. She said, of course, you can sing to me. And there's a video on Fred and Instagram about that. And then I sang a part of one of her songs, because she's a songwriter as well. and she was like overwhelmed. Oh my God, my song! So it was it was fun, and I was happy I could do that, and I was happy she was glad about me singing her song. So that's my favorite interview. Another interview that I enjoyed was with Pier Francesco Favino, because among the Italian actors and Italian artists, is one of the gentlemen, because sometimes, especially Italian actors or directors, they don't always respect our job. Yeah, they feel like they're artists that they can like skip the gentleman part. And he's always he's a gentleman. He's always very respectful of our job. So I think that he would have answered in a very nice way, even if I had asked him about the weather. And that felt nice. Plus, I think after at the end of the interview, he complimented me for the questions, for understanding the film the way he wanted the film to be felt and received. So it was a nice chat. I've interviewed him in the past, but I was glad that an Italian actor could be so nice and kind. And I guess these are the two. And of course, I was glad to see my Italian friend actors, Serena Rossi and some other actors from the cast of the closing film, Lasciami andare. I don't know if the translation, the international title was Let Me Go, but anyway.
It should be.
It was You Came Back.
Oh.
That's the international title. You Came Back. So that's it.
That's it.
If I remember. Yeah. Italians. A lot of Italians.
Right. And you can listen to the Italian interviews on the Italian channel on Fred. And I've got a feeling that we will be hearing your interview with Maya Hawke on this very show. Chiara, I asked you earlier what time of the day would be best to watch it. You think is best to watch a film in. What time of the day do you think would be best for you to be kidnapped by Ethan Hawke? No, that's not a serious question. Well,
you don't want to know the answer. Anytime you want to come and save me.
Anytime. Man, I've loved Ethan Hawke since I saw him play Chet Baker in that overlooked film. Film. I can't think of the title now, but it is the Chet Baker bio.
Okay, but yeah.
Anyways, Chiara, it's been a pleasure talking with you. Thanks for joining us on the Big Fred Tuesday. We hope to have you back soon.
Thank you so much, my dear Matt. Ciao.
Fred Film Radio.
Well, we hinted at it earlier in our chat with Chiara Nicoletti, and here is her interview from the 77th Venice International Film Festival with Maya Hawke, star of Gia Coppola's film Mainstream, presented in the Orizzonti section.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm honored to be here. It is totally mind-blowing to get to be out of America. It's amazing.
Actually, this year was difficult for all of us, and now it's
been an intense year, yeah.
And we're finally in our cinema family.
I mean, it feels crazy, like the world is actually happening, and it seems to be happening so safely, and there's so many wonderful precautions, and everyone is being so respectful of each other and giving space. It feels like the world can go on. We can, keep making movies and keep being together and celebrating them. I feel very, very lucky.
Talking about the film, so I felt that though it explores modern-day social media's world, I felt it was like an old-fashioned tale, about a woman trying to find their voice.
Yes. I mean, it's interesting. I do find that the movie is actually slightly more parabolistic than it is kind of like a document of our time. Like, it's not exactly the way things really happen, but it is a kind of condensed parable story to talk about, all these things that are happening, to talk about social media, to talk about performance, to talk about the desire and need of love from other people, whether it's everybody or just one person. I think Frankie has that kind of dual thing going on, which is she does want attention from the world and support from the world, but not as much as she really wants the attention and affection and love of Link. And both end up being toxic, and she's sort of reborn and finds her own voice in the end and starts to sort of understand that the only person she really needs attention and love and affection from is herself. And it's wonderful to be a part of a parable like that.
I focused a lot on the scar.
Oh, yes.
Yes, because I found it to be her weakest point, but maybe the key to connect with her in a way. So how did you work on that with Gia? Is it something?
Well, I think it's about shame, I think it's about what are the things, everyone has a scar, quote unquote scar, and it's the thing that they're ashamed of, if it's body image issues or a speech impediment or a facial scar or a learning disability or just a weird personality, whatever it is. We all have things that we walk around feeling shame over, and in order to accept ourselves, we have to accept that there's beauty in all of those things, and that it's all interconnected, and it's all of the package of who you are and what makes you an individual, and your past too. I mean, her scar is intrinsically connected to her past, the loss of her father, and so accepting your trauma, accepting your experience, your past, what makes you who you are. Seeing all of that is beautiful. I mean, one of my favorite shots in the film is at the end when she pulls back her hair, and and it's like this sort of moment of saying, no, like actually, here's my whole self. I think that that's really beautiful to me.
Do you think that we can manage to find like a balance and a limit in the way we live in this modern day era with social network and the way we show ourselves? We always ask ourselves this, but
have human beings ever found balance or limits? No, right? Give us alcohol, we drink too much. Give us money, we spend too much. Give us cars, we drive too much. We only know excess. We seem to have no boundaries, no limits. And until we go too far, right? You drink, and then you have to quit. You pull all the way back, except the few very enlightened people who can seem to sort of do a little bit of everything, and with grace and moderation. There are a few of us, but for the most part, we're sort of gluttonous monsters who do too much and then have to quit. So I don't know if we'll find balance with social media. I tried to find balance in my own life. As I try to find it in all areas of my life, and sometimes succeed and sometimes fail. So I don't know, I'm not particularly hopeful, but I hope so.
What did you get away with this film?
What did I get away with?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
What's the lesson?
Oh, what did I come away with?
Come away. Sorry.
No. I just get away with is like, what did I sneak in?
Maybe in a way we can.
What rascally thing did I get away with? I came away having learned a lot from Andrew and a lot from Nat, and just their experience. They've both worked a lot longer than I have, and the way that they approach the scene and their characters, and it was all incredibly interesting and educational for me. And I came away feeling very inspired by Gia as a director. I was initially, I met Gia being photographed by her. I was a model in a modeling situation, and it was the first photos that anyone had ever taken of me that I felt like were pictures of me. Like the way that she saw my face and saw my image, and they looked like me to me. She knew how to sort of capture women in a way that mirrored their self-understanding. And I feel the same way about her as a director of the moving image. She leaves room for awkwardness and imperfection, and like doesn't make, like you look sort of perfect in every shot. She understands sort of the beauty of the whole person and all of their flaws and their clumsiness and strangeness. And so I learned a lot from her, both about self-acceptance and about storytelling and how to be on set. I think I mostly came away with learning a lot from my coworkers.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that
with
us. Thank you, Maya Hawke, for being with us for Mainstream by Gia Coppola, screening at the 77th Venice International Film Festival in the Orizzonti section. And this is Chiara Nicoletti for Fred, the Festival Insider. Grazie.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Fred Film Radio.
People of the universe, we have come to the end of yet another episode of Big Fred Tuesday. Before we bid each other farewell, here are some more news and recent announcements from the world of film. Pedro Almodovar's English-language debut, The Human Voice, has been added to the shorts programme of the upcoming BFI London Film Festival. The film recently premiered at the Venice Film Festival is loosely based on Jean Cocteau's play and stars Tilda Swinton. Almodovar and Swinton will accompany the film via a pre-recorded introduction and Q&A. The 64th BFI London Film Festival is set to run from the 7th to the 18th of October online, as well as in cinemas across the United Kingdom. After 25 years, the cast of 1991's beloved film Father of the Bride, a remake of the 1950 film of the same name, reunited on screen with additional members for a third installment in the series named Father of the Bride Part 3-ish, revolving around a wedding announcement on Zoom. The film streamed exclusively on Netflix's YouTube channel and Facebook page this past Friday, featuring Steve Martin and Diane Keaton, as well as Kieran Culkin, Martin Short, and others reprising their roles. The reunion was introduced by Reese Witherspoon and was to benefit the World Central Kitchen, a non-profit organization dedicated to providing meals to communities affected by disasters such as the coronavirus pandemic. And now here is some exciting news for cinephiles, as Chinese authorities have registered and approved a new project written by Hong Kong-based auteur Wong Kar-wai, listed as Chungking Express 2020. It is unclear from the brief and cryptic filing whether this film will either be a follow-up or a remake of the original 1994 film Chungking Express, but the script was submitted for government approval in Shanghai in April and was approved on September 23. Watch out for more news on this upcoming production, but in the meantime, it has also been announced that Wong Kar-wai's entire filmography is set for re-release this year in 4K restoration, headlined by a 20th anniversary edition of In the Mood for Love, and that he is currently working on 2 adaptations of the Shanghai set novel Blossoms by Jin Yu Cheng. With that, we really have reached the end of the BFT. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to tune in next week for more news and conversations from the world of film with me, Matt Micucci. If you like, you can also check out more of our content and podcast interviews, which are ongoing at the moment, including our coverage of the San Sebastian Film Festival in Spain. You could, if you like, also go back and revisit more of our content from the amazing archive that we have amassed over the years. In any case, don't forget to also stay healthy, stay safe, stay strong, and stay tuned to Fred Film Radio, the Festival Insider.
Fred.
Benvenuti su Fred Film Radio, the Festival Insider.
This is Fred Film Radio, il y a Mandy Bertotti.
Clémence Ferry-Latour pour Fred Film Radio, en direct du Festival de Cannes.
간단히 선생님 작品の紹介.
أهلا بكم في Fred Film Radio. معكم مهرجان.
Fred, the festival experience in 23 languages.
Fred Film Radio.
24/7 on Fred.fm and smartphone apps.